Hello everybody and welcome to this next episode, or episode 3 of Creativity in Progress. I am so nervous about this episode. I am so nervous, and I know I say that quite a lot, and obviously, as I've said in the past, the more I do this, the less anxious and the less nerve-wracking this whole thing will become. But right now it is so terrifying because I want to talk to you today about a subject that is very personal, and it's something that I am very anxious to share with you. But I think, as I always say, even if my story can just help one person with their either creative journey or help them gain some confidence to share their own story, then this whole thing will be so worth it. This subject, or some of the subjects we're going to talk about today, are incredibly deep and incredibly personal to me, and all I ask is that you are patient with me throughout this episode because it's going to be a tough one. I feel it's interesting because I kind of have a rough idea of the subjects and the things I want to talk about each week. However, I do kind of decide very much on the day, and I make some notes whilst I'm on my Sunday dog walk with Charlie. So I record these episodes on Sunday, they go live on Monday, because I don't want to overthink them, and I think a lot of the time I get in my own head a lot, and I will have a lot of doubt, and I have a lot of anxieties about this whole thing. So I try not to overthink it, and I also try and do the record on a Sunday so I don't overthink the record, and I know it's going to go live on Monday, so I kind of set myself a goal to get it all sort of like done in one day. But I kind of very much decide on the subject matter a day or two before, but then I kind of finalize it and make notes the morning of this record. And again, I'm really glad that my brain operates in this way, and I think it's a really, really good thing because the subjects, as I said, that I want to talk about today are incredibly personal, and I feel like if I gave it more headspace and more thought and more sort of time to it, then I would just get really, really scared to the point where I would not want to record this. So yeah, just be patient with me, please, because it is going to be a little bit of a tricky one. The subject that I'm going to talk about a lot is loneliness, and also a little bit of comparison, but I kind of want to have a separate episode on the podcast or video cast or whatever this thing is outside of this episode. So I am going to talk a bit about loneliness today, and I think it's something that a lot of us creatives definitely feel, and it is very much a part of who we are. I think as creatives we tend to be quite introverted, and we like our own space, and we like to do things on our own, and art and drawing is definitely my safe space, and I know that resonates with a lot of you. But I want to talk and I want to touch on the actual loneliness and the impact of that loneliness. So it's something I actually talk about in therapy. For those of you who know me, you'll know that I've been in and out of therapy since I was a very young age. But I've now consistently been in therapy for the last 18 months, and it's something that I do not intend on ever giving up because I think it really helps me regulate myself and my own emotions and the way I operate, and I'm very, very grateful and very glad that I have got the opportunity to be in therapy. But I do talk to my therapist a lot about the way I'm feeling, obviously, and we talk a lot about loneliness. So just a little bit of background for you. I am a single 30-year-old woman who, even the word woman just makes me sound, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I always say, oh yeah, I'm just a girl. But technically, I guess I am now 30, and I do consider myself, well, I guess I am considered a woman, but that whole premise baffles me, because I honestly don't feel like I'm accomplished enough to be a woman. But what does that even mean? That's another tangent. I'm sure we can go down another avenue on another sort of day. But yeah, I'm a 30-year-old single woman who lives alone. I obviously have my adorable spaniel Charlie, who is very much my best friend in the whole world, and I'm very, very grateful for his presence and his company all the time. But I have spent the majority of my adult years on my own, and I think I'm very much used to my own way of doing things and my own thought patterns, and sharing the space just with me and Charlie. And the idea of someone sharing my life with me both is terrifying, but also I have got to be open, and the idea of it is exciting, I guess. But because of the things that I've been through, I do think that the idea of someone being in my life is scary. I have kind of been alone since a very, very young age, and obviously, I've got a very close-knit family and things like that, but from being at school to being horrendously bullied to being in and out of hospital on my own, I was very, very isolated. I've always chosen sports and activities that allowed me to be on my own, whether it was horse riding or drawing or running or, gym or anything like that. I was never a team player, and I was never very good interacting with other people, especially not as a young girl in school. I was being part of a netball team. I was always like the last one to be picked, and it was never something that I was very confident in being. And as I said, horrendously bullied for being epileptic and having a lot of difficulties growing up, and sort of being in and out of therapy since a young age. So the idea of being alone doesn't scare me, and I'm very much used to my own company. And I think because of the things I've been through, which I'll sort of touch upon in a bit, but I'm still very much working on my sense of self-worth and my sense of self, and that's something that is still incredibly challenging for me. Even to put myself out there like this is, as I've said so many times, this is so scary and so daunting, because I am opening myself up for judgment and criticism and everything that I've actively tried to avoid for the last 10 to 15 years. And I think as soon as I lost my kind of innocence as a child, I've always been living in a little bit of fear against judgment. And I think the way I operate with my life is very isolated. And it's funny because I'm very, very lucky, and I've always said I'm very lucky to be able to do the job that I do. But I think, as I've said previously, it's very much because I have kind of forced myself to become good at something just so I don't have to go and entertain anyone else in the workplace, or like I can function very much on my own with like life, I guess. But in the past few years, I have had I've been in two incredibly toxic and mentally damaging relationships, and this is something I've never spoken about on my social media. It's never something that I would have made public knowledge at all. There would have been times when I didn't post for a month or two, but I've never spoken publicly about why I find it difficult to stay consistent online. But I think being into very emotionally abusive relationships it has again given me another level of self-doubt and a lack of self-worth, and I think after the last one, I kind of was at such a low point in my life that I have just always been very grateful to use my art as a coping mechanism. And one thing I will just touch upon quickly that I don't want to make a big deal out of is I think back to the things that I've been through and over the past few years, and I kind of think, how did I end up in two? Like, surely one was enough. But I think they were both very damaging, but in completely different ways. And sometimes you don't realise how bad something, like I didn't realise how bad it was until my friends basically had to make me aware, and it took me a long time to be able to get the strength to get out of it. And I've now been on a bit of a healing journey for the last probably about 13-14 months, and again, it's still something I very, very much struggle with, and I definitely use my art as a coping mechanism. And even putting myself out there like this is horrendously terrifying, because this is something that I've been working towards for over a year in therapy, to become strong enough again to be able to tell more of my story. But being in emotionally abusive relationships definitely made me question my whole identity. And I'll make no secret of the fact that I've had work done, and I have changed my appearance because I felt so self-conscious over the years of the way that I was made to feel, whether it's to do with my physical body or the way my face is or with the weather. And I just want to preface this by saying, I think as a single 30-year-old woman who has never kind of had a long-term adult relationship, there does become a point where you kind of do start to question, are you good enough? Are you worthy? Are you all these things? And unfortunately, that does lead me being in my own head a lot to comparison and seeing a lot of things online with social media and appearances, and thinking, right, I need to do this and I need to do that, and I don't feel good enough, and I was made to feel like this was wrong with me and that was wrong with me, so I need to change this and I need to change that. And I just want to say, if any of you relate to this, then it's okay, because it's something that I think a lot of us do struggle with, especially in the era of social media online. And again, I know this is a very sort of touchy subject for a lot of us, and I know a lot of people, or some of you, won't be able to understand and won't be able to relate, and that's okay. And it's a really, really tough subject, and I'm going to try not to get upset about it, because it really hurts me. It really, really hurts me to know, like, what the things that I've kind of experienced that have led me to believe and have these core beliefs. And my heart, when I think about like little me and young Beth, and I think, you know, she was horrendously bullied for having curly hair, so I now get my hair permanently. I get my hair sort of like permanently done, or the things that I've had done, and you know, it's never been anything dramatic, and it's never been something I can't revert and change back. But I think it breaks my heart that we as girls feel like we need to change who we are just because of the way society and social media and other people make us feel. And if I could change that, I definitely would. But unfortunately, that's a core belief that I'm still very much trying to work through with therapy. But everything I do and everything I have done is to try and increase my confidence levels. And it's just such a shame, because as I said, we live in a world of comparison, which is something I definitely want to talk about more in later episodes. But I think as well as that, you do, and I have definitely developed a lot of toxic work patterns where I will work crazy hours just because I don't know what else to do. And it's also led me down different rabbit holes of fitness programs where I've, you know, had various crazy fitness regimes just to try and look a certain way and just to feel like I would be accepted, because of the way that people have made me feel in the past. And again, it breaks my heart to sit here and say this to you now, but I just, as I always say, I tell my stories because I hope that someone else will be able to kind of relate, and couple that with the fact that I know I have to put myself out there publicly on camera a lot of the time for the business and for my work. It's such a cause of anxiety, and I can't tell you the amounts of times when I've completely criticised myself to the point where I can't put myself on camera for months. You'll notice that if you've watched my YouTube, there will be huge month gaps where I just won't feel confident, and you'll barely ever see me post a reel of myself on Instagram just because of my confidence levels. It's something that my therapist has taught me and continues to teach me recently, is about my own anxiety and my own levels of anxiety and how they help me and also how they cripple me in terms of doing things. So as I've always said, I'm very, very lucky, and I think a lot of us will understand each other when we say that art is our therapy, and drawing and having that space for us is just so key. But sometimes despite changing your appearance and trying to fit in more with society and the standard of just the standard of being, I think now, that rightly or wrongly, I mean, again, I just want to preface this by saying I know a lot of people won't understand the things I'm saying, and that's okay. But I think it would be wrong of me not to talk about things like this. I really do, even though they are such taboo subjects. But something, as I said, my therapist is teaching me at the moment is about the two voices that I have got in my own head. And one of them is my own voice, and one of them is we call it my little anxiety voice. And I want to tell you more about it because I think when I realised this and when I began to separate the two voices, it helped me a lot be able to function a lot more and a lot better. So I have my own voice, which is the things that I want to do. So say I want to, like, my best friend at the moment is travelling in Bali. She's traveling in Australia, but she is going to be in Bali in the summer, and she has said to me, why don't you fly out? Like, it'd be great for us to come, like, spend a couple of weeks together, like, travel Bali, it would be amazing, and all the rest of it. And of course my immediate thought was, absolutely, I would love to do that. Like, that's what an opportunity. And then my anxiety voice, which is, unfortunately, because of my own limiting beliefs and self-doubt and everything like that, that is a very, very strong voice in my own head, and that says, don't be so silly, you can't do that, you can't go and sit on a plane, like, that's terrifying, you're going to be over the other side of the world, what if something goes wrong over here, what if something happens to Charlie, what happens if something happens to your grandma, like, you can't do that, like, what if something, like, and again, you get what I'm saying, that voice is so strong to the point where I listen to it way more than I do my own voice, and I'm so scared of judgment from that voice or from criticism, because I think that voice has been developed now from things I've heard in the past, from being bullied at school to things that the things that have been said in those sort of I'm going to call them the toxic relationships, the things that my ex-partner said to me lives rent-free in my head a lot of the time, and to the point where it's hard now, because I know that I'm a nice person, I know that I'm a kind person, I know that I'm a good person, I know that inherently, because I know that I have to believe that about myself. But despite that voice in my head tells me I'm terrible, and it tells me that who's going to listen to this, and people are going to judge me, and people are going to judge this subject matter, people are going to criticize me, and you can't put this episode out there. Like, the voice in my head right now is saying, like, you can't put this episode out there because it's just going to be too much, and you're going to lose people, and people won't understand, and all the rest of it. But I have to stay true to myself, and as I keep saying, and I'm trying to quieten that other voice by saying, if this episode just helps one person with a battle that they're going through, where they don't feel good enough, or they feel like they're comparing themselves or their work to other people, then this will be worth it. It really will be worth it. So my anxious voice comes from a place of trying to keep me safe, and it's trying to protect me. I know that, and I kind of have to say, like, it's okay, I hear you and I understand your concerns. And it sounds silly because my therapist always tells me to talk to that voice, and I do try sometimes, and I just say, look, it's okay, I know we're scared, and that's okay. It's okay to be scared, and it's okay to not know what's going to happen next, and it's okay to feel anxious. But I trust myself, and you've got to trust me now, and together we'll be okay. We have been okay so far. We've managed to get through some horrendous things in the past, and we've done it. And okay, they do leave scars, and they do leave, mental scars, and it has left me feeling certain ways and very lost and confused and having severe sort of or crippling anxiety on some days. But those are the days where I pick up my pencils and I shut myself off to the world, and that's okay. But I think one of the things that you kind of have to realize as well is that in life you kind of have to get used to being uncomfortable, and no matter what path you choose in life, there is always going to be a pain point. There's always going to be a level of pain that comes with your decision. So if you want to be an artist and you want to be a creative, and you know you have to put yourself out there, then you are going to feel uncomfortable for the first few times, and it can be scary, and you might think, I can't do this and maybe I should go back to my normal job. But there was also a level of pain with that normal job, which is why you'd be wanting to choose a creative path. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's just like you kind of have to choose your level of discomfort, your level of pain, and just say like, the lesser, like, what do actually I want? Like, quieting that anxious voice that tells you, you know, a bad thing's going to happen or something's not going to work out. What do you inherently want? Because there will be a level of discomfort that you have to go through with change, and you have to kind of put yourself out there and be open to learn and adapt. And you've just got to put yourself out there, I guess, and just decide what you, and try and listen to your own voice rather than the voice in your head that tells you can't do something. But for me, and the whole point of this episode is how to cope with that voice and how to cope with the criticism and the comparison and the judgment. And for me, creating routines around my life has helped both with the loneliness and helped me function as a person and as a business owner, and just helped me become like a well-rounded person. And don't get me wrong, there are still times, as I said, where I can't even be on social media, I can't look at my emails, I can't respond to comments, I have to be in the right space. And sometimes I have a poor mental health day and I can't function properly, and I will shut myself off. And the blessing that I have with art is that it both soothes me and allows me a form of income. So I kind of operate my business not from a point of having extreme goals or extreme things I want to accomplish. I'm just grateful that I can do something that calms me down to the point where that this does, and it still allows me to help other people, and in turn helping other people allows me to live my life. And I just think that's so magical. But I think creating the routines just helps so much. And I think it's a bit of a what's the word, it's a bit opposite as a creative to try and develop routines, because I think a lot of creatives tend to be quite free-spirited and just be like, oh, I'm gonna paint when I feel like painting. But I feel like creating structure, now don't get me wrong, it definitely depends how you operate as a person, whether you do well off structure and routine, or whether you are and you know you can function a little bit more free-spirited and a bit more loosely, and you don't need to have that structure and that routine. And I think one of the blessings for me is having a dog that needs routine, and having such a hyperactive dog has forced me to have more structure in my life. So with Charlie, we get up, or he gets up at the same time. He runs downstairs as soon as I get up, which he kind of forces me to get up as soon as he wakes up. He has his breakfast, he goes out for a wee, and then he goes and sits by the front door and waits to go out for his walk. So that is definitely like, getting out and having fresh air for me first thing has become non-negotiable. No matter what the weather is doing, we're up and out, and that allows me some breathing space to process how I'm feeling and process my day. And I think one of the lessons that I learned a while back is I don't do well if I sort of roll out of bed and roll into this room and start work. I need that space, and I feel like that's actually a point, because a lot of the time, if we were working a 9-to-5 job or we're working away, you have a commute, and that is that commute to work. That is your space to think and breathe and wonder, you know, what you're going to do with your evening, what you're going to do with your day. And it's that kind of gap that you can process your thoughts a little bit. And I feel like when you work and you live alone, and especially if you're like me and I'm in my own head a lot, everything can just get like mushed and blurred into one thing, and it can be really difficult to kind of separate things. So for me, I really like to make to-do lists, priority lists, because sometimes a to-do list can be extremely overwhelming. You write down all your things and it just looks like a lot. So having a priority list where you're like, I need to get these things done today, or that thing can wait until tomorrow or next week or next month, or that isn't a priority. Separating the things out is really, really key. I also have a day that I call my GYST day, which is JYST, and that's my get your shit together day. And that tends to be a bit on what I do on a Saturday. So get up, take Charlie out, and then I'll go and do a food shop. Then I'll put fuel in my car, ready for the week ahead. And even like I just have set routines. I make sure Charlie's got enough food. I make sure the house is tidy, the washing's done. That is my day to adult and do things that I need to do to get me ahead for the week. And again, it's putting those structures and putting those routines ahead to allow current me to benefit future me. So I don't have to worry about not having enough fuel, or I've got all my meals prepped and I know what I'm eating for each day. And it's just decreasing that decision fatigue, because I feel like when you are alone a lot, you do have to make a lot of decisions on your own, and that can be absolutely exhausting, from running a business to being a homeowner to being a dog mum and to making the decisions about my house. And I'm halfway through renovating at the moment, and that's an ongoing project that I've been working on now for 2 years, and just having like lots of like running a lot of things and spinning a lot of plates, you tend to get a bit of decision fatigue. So I feel like just having space to process and having a day where you can just get your stuff together and get what you need to do sorted really, really helps me. Regular fresh air is another thing. Fitness is a massive part of my life. Obviously, I know it's not going to be for everyone, but going to the gym and trying to keep a healthy balance with going to the gym and having good fitness levels is really, really key for me. So I've really got into running recently, and that's been something that again allows me to clear my head. Going to the gym, I tend to go very much at the same time each day because I see my friends, and that's a bit of a social. So that's how I kind of combat my own loneliness, and try and do things that make you feel happy each day, even if it's just one thing, even if it's, you know, getting some fresh air, taking your dog for a walk, or, you know, doing a piece of work or starting a new piece, whatever makes you happy. And also trying to just see one positive or one beautiful thing each day, and just really just try and hold on to that one positive thing. Even if it's you saw a really beautiful flower, it can be so little bit in the grand scheme of things. It's just having that more positive mental attitude to really help you stay on a positive, even keel. And I think that is definitely key to trying to keep yourself more positive. And as I said, it doesn't necessarily work all the time. There are still very much days, even despite the fact that I've got a very lot of structure and routine, I think there becomes a point where I have got too much structure and routine in my life, and anything outside of that norm tends to give me a bit of anxiety, and again, that's something I'm definitely working through with my therapist, and that's why we talk a lot about the two voices in my head, because it's like, what do I want to do? And it's like, well, what's the voice telling me that I should do? And the voice can be very, very strong again when it comes to work and to run a business, and it's almost like a bit of imposter syndrome, where it's like, who am I to do this? Who am I to have these conversations? Who am I to receive such positive, kind, amazing feedback for these episodes? Like, who am I to talk about these subjects? Who's going to listen? I'm so scared that people are going to think it's dramatic, or people are going to think it's this and it's that, and who am I? And those are the sort of things. And again, it's about creating patterns in place and trying to see the positive in everything, which I know is something I talked about last week. But for me, one of the positive things that I really pride myself on is being a brilliant mum to Charlie. And it's something that's so little in the grand scheme of things, but I look at him and I'm so grateful that I'm fit and I'm healthy and I'm capable, and he gets a good life. I'm with him all the time. He gets the best walks. He goes swimming pretty much every day. He doesn't ask for anything. He's under my desk at the moment in his dressing gown after his little bath that he had this morning after he got filthy in a field. And he's happy. And seeing him content, I know that I've done the best I could for him today. And that gives me a sense of accomplishment and a sense of purpose, because even when life feels like it's falling apart, and when life and the business and I can't function like a normal human or a neurotypical human on a day where I have a bad mental health day, I know that I've done my best for Charlie, and having that in the back of my head just really helps me get through each day. And I think I also, at this point, I want to say that it's okay to feel like you want to quit and to kind of look at things on social media and feel the air of comparison and compare your work and yourself and the way you present yourself and whatever it is that you compare. That's completely normal. And it's also okay to feel so lost and confused and to kind of jump between ideas a lot of the time. And again, there's so many things I want to talk about, and there's so many things that I'm not going to talk about today. I'm going to save for future episodes because it's a lot, and I don't want it to be too much for people. But I think there's still very much things that I struggle with, and there's things that, again, I really, really want to address and boundaries and everything like that. But a theory I actually learned a little while back, again through therapy, is a thing called Seagull's law, which is basically the kind of, to summarize it a little bit, is a man has got one watch, and if a man's got one watch, he'll be able to tell you the time, and if a man's got two watches, he'll always be unsure. So basically what that means is we live in a society now where we have got so much choice and so many options, and we're forever trying to get more content and more ideas and more information before we make a decision. And again, that comes very much down to a bit of decision fatigue, where you sometimes feel completely paralyzed and you're like, I don't know where to turn, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how this is all going to work out. And having too much information, you can sometimes flit around and you can jump between ideas and nothing ever sticks, and you feel like you might decide to do one thing one day and the next thing you want to do another thing, and that's fine. But I think the whole point, and where this whole Seagull's law comes from, is years and years ago we didn't have as much choice as what we do now. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have the things and all the amazing opportunities at our fingertips. It was very much like you got up on a Sunday and you went to church, or you had very much gender roles in the house, or we didn't have the opportunity that we do now, and which is a blessing and also a curse. And I think that the whole point is that if you stick to something long enough, and if you really give it your all, and you don't flip between ideas, which I know is easier said than done, because I have flitted between more ideas and within the business and mediums and everything like that than I can possibly tell you. But I always come back to coloured pencil, and I always come back to doing what I love most, and which is drawing. No matter what different avenues life throws at me, I always seem to come back to the one thing. And I think that if you stay consistent over a long period of time to anything you want, and if you really give it your all, then I promise you will see results, no matter whether it's to do with drawing or fitness or business or anything you want to do. And if you couple this with routine and structure, like what we've discussed and like what we've kind of spoken about, then I promise you are creating a really, really good foundation for happiness and results and success, whatever success looks like to you. And I really love that law, and I really love that whole theory of sometimes we just have too many choices, too many options, and we have too many voices in our head that tell us too many different things. And sometimes you just need to really sit yourself down and go, right, who am I and what do I want, and how is my life going to look, and how do I want my life to look? And if I could choose anything, or if I could choose to be anything or anyone and do whatever I want, then what would I actually do? And again, I think that is a really tough question to answer a lot of the time. But I think if you take the time to really be true to yourself and actually really ask yourself those questions and really dig deep and kind of really ask yourself, what do I want? Like forgetting all the external noise and all the external comments and voices, then just stay true to that, and whatever answers you get, stay true to those answers and stay true to your passion and your actual, like, what you want to do. Because again, it's that consistency over time that will really, really pay off. And as I always say, you don't have to have it all figured out. You can have a goal in mind, and you have got things that you want to accomplish, but you don't know how you're going to get there yet. And that's okay. You don't have to have all the answers, and you don't need to have it all figured out. And you're entitled to change, and you're entitled to change your mind. But as long as you stay kind of true to yourself along the way, and to not really let anyone knock you or create that sort of little anxious voice to become a bit more prominent, and learn to try and quieten the external noise, then it really, really will help you over time and in the long term as well. And I know, obviously, I don't know whether we really touched upon loneliness today. I think we did a little bit, but obviously it is something that can be really dealt with creating structure and routine a lot of the time. And loneliness, I think, as creatives, and having too much time in your own head can be really, really good, but also really bad. And I always try to see the positives for everything. So I'm very, very glad in a way that I've been through what I've been through. And even though I'm watching a lot of my friends start to get married and get engaged and have babies and all the rest of it, and I sit here with my dog and my business and not really seeing a lot of the outside world a lot of the time, that's okay. And I have to know that that's okay. And my path and your path doesn't need to look like anyone else's. This is your journey and this is your life. And sometimes things don't work out in the way that we expect them to. But as a quote and as a phrase that I have told myself time and time and time again is, so what if it doesn't work out in the way that you wanted it to? Because it could work out so much better than you ever thought possible. And that's where I want to leave this episode today, because it's so, so true. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to have it all figured out, because it could end up being better than you ever thought possible. And everything bad that has ever happened, or every negative scenario, every negative thing that's ever happened to you, then that has helped craft you into the person you are today. And please don't look at anything like they help form us and make us who we are. And of course, there's pros and there's cons to every scenario. And arguably, if I hadn't been through what I've been through over the years, then I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. But if I hadn't been through all the things that I've been through, then I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now. And I'm very grateful. Yeah, I get to, as I said, create and have a very safe business and life that provides me with an income that I can live on to support me and Charlie. And I don't know what is going to happen over the next few years. I don't know. I'm just very lucky and I'm very grateful that I can now share my knowledge of pencils with so many other people. And the whole premise behind my whole teaching philosophy is I don't ever go into something thinking about how it could work out over the long term. I don't go in with long-term goals, but the whole point and the whole reason why I love teaching so much is because I get to teach so many hundreds of you how to draw, different skills, different creative therapy, or a lot of creative therapy, different sort of pencil techniques. And I always say I try and keep my classes accessible and it's super, super affordable, because I just want to be able to help people. And for me, that is the biggest thing now. I'm just incredibly lucky that I'm now in a position where I can do that. And that's the thing that I have to cling on to, is keeping hold of my purpose, no matter how lonely I feel, keeping true to who I am and the person I'm becoming, and realising that what I've been through, it's okay, and I don't need to dwell on the past too much, and all I need to do is be like, do you know what, that was really shit what I went through, and that's okay. And I look at the person I am now and I go, you're not a bad person, you can do this, you've got this, you're strong, you're capable, you've got through a lot, you've been through a lot, and that's okay. And you don't know, you don't need to have all the answers, but you just need to learn that that voice isn't you. The voice in your head that's telling you you can't do things, that isn't you, that isn't what you want. So what do you want, and what if it works out better than you could ever imagine? That was a lot. That was a lot. I really hope you're still here, and I really hope you have been patient with me throughout the episode, because that was a lot for me, and I'm sure it's a lot for a lot of us. And I know I touched upon some pretty touchy subjects there, and I'm really scared. I can't lie. That was tough. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening and for continuing to be so amazing and supportive. And I really hope, as I always say, if this episode can just help one of you with something you're going through, then this whole thing would be so worth it. I'm sorry if it's a subject that you can't relate to or that you don't agree with. That's okay. Everyone's entitled to have their opinion, and that's completely normal. But yeah, I'm just very, very grateful to have this space to be able to share my thoughts and my ideas and the things that I've learned with you all. So as always, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I'm sending you all so much love, and I will see you next week. Thank you, and see you later.